Welcome to today's training, Becoming a Better Mentor, Working Within the Mentoring System. I'm Susie Owens, your facilitator for today, and we'll be joined by panelists Emily and Sarah. About Mentor Nebraska. Mentor Nebraska is the unifying champion for mentoring, and we've been doing this work for about 20 years in Nebraska. We're part of Mentor, the national mentoring partnership, and through that network of Mentor National and affiliates, we provide training, no-cost consulting, advocacy, and mentor recruitment, specifically in our geographic location of Nebraska. So each month we like to bring a no-cost training opportunity to the community so that they can engage with best practices in mentoring. Today we're going to get into our agenda. We'll learn about the Becoming a Better Mentor resource, what it really means to work within the mentoring system. We'll have a pre-recorded panel by Emily and Sarah talking about what a working alliance looks like in practice. We'll cover key takeaways from the chapter, and then we'll get into additional support. Becoming a Better Mentor, strategies to be there for young people, about the resource. This resource had a few different goals. We wanted to build on what we know from research about how mentors can show up for young people. In addition to research, we also included wisdom from the mentoring field. The resource is full of real-world advice and evidence-based strategies, and it provides mentors with tangible strategies to show up for young people. I love this resource. It's one of my favorites that has come out of Mentor National. It's set up in 12 different chapters, 6 that focus on relationship building practices, and 6 that focus on practices for showing up and supporting young people. This curriculum is very accessible and can be accessed by different audience members in the format that suits their needs. There's a PDF version which you can print online and read and mock up on and make notes in, however you like to engage with text. You can watch a short video, and then you also can listen in a podcast format. So be sure to check out www.mentoring.org/becoming-a-better-mentor so that you can access this curriculum, and feel free to pull up the chapter as we dive into this work. Let's get into the chapter. Working with others in the mentoring system is chapter 7 of the Becoming a Better Mentor resource. Making an effort to get to know the other adults in your mentee's life can improve your understanding of and ability to communicate with your mentee. And so that's really what's lifted up in this chapter, is from the mentor perspective, how can they work alongside mentoring staff, the parent or caregiver, teachers, coaches, and other adults in the mentee's life so that everyone can be on the same page. Let's start with the brain warmer. Think back to when you were a child. Did your mentors have good relationships with caregivers, teachers, or other important adults in your life? What do you remember about their communication? I'll pause here to share a personal story. When I was a young person, I had a wonderful mentor. Her name was Miss Brenda Bell. She's now passed. May she rest in peace. And I remember we met at a church in North Omaha. It was the church with the red door is what we called it. And that's when we did our mentoring sessions. And sometimes we would divert from like our regular sessions at the church with the red door, and she might plan a trip somewhere. Specifically, I remember going to like a lake and catching frogs and things like that. And so an example of her having to work with my family as a mentor was to talk to my family about where we were going, what we were doing, what was the purpose of the trip, how would we travel, were they comfortable with the way that we traveled, and how long we would be gone. And that's a really great example of her using open communication to make sure that although we were doing something that was kind of different than our normal sessions, that my family was fully on board. And I just have still wonderful memories of that day at the lake and catching frogs and just being really carefree and having a lot of fun. And I know that would not have been possible if Miss Brenda didn't communicate really well with my family. So much so that when we ran into her in community or at the grocery store and things, there was always very positive communication between Miss Brenda and my family. We almost saw her as an extension of the family, and it felt good to me as a young person to know that my family felt that I was safe when I was with her, and that she also had a positive view of my family. So we'd love to invite you all to pause the video and for your own self, take a moment to think back to a time when you kind of experienced or witnessed mentors in your life communicating with your family. Okay. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you paused and took time to engage in that brain warmer activity. We'll keep going. Key topics we're going to cover in this session are how to build connections within a mentee support network while also keeping the young person centered. A mentor wants to have positive connection with the adults around the mentee, but we have to also remember that the mentee is always at the center of that relationship. The mentee is who's connecting all those adults. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll talk about respecting the priorities and values of caregivers as the key adults in the mentee's life. We'll talk about responsibly sharing information. How do we gather insights, offer feedback, but also protect the confidentiality when that's in play? And lastly, we will talk about how to set clear boundaries and expectations in your role as a mentor. And so I'm excited to get into some of the information and also really to uplift the panelists that we'll have because they have really great stories around all of these topics as well. So encourage you to stay on and engage with that as well. So let's talk working within the mentoring relationship or system. What does it mean to work within the mentoring system? Well, mentoring relationships rarely exist in isolation. Usually there are lots of interactions and connecting points between the mentor and the young person and other people in their life. And that's a good thing, right? We want there to be openness, communication, transparency between all the adults who are impacting that young person's life. So this is why it's important, because what one person or adult does might affect the youth will have ripple effects for other adults in that relationship. And so that's why it's good for everyone to be on the same page. Mentees have key people in their support network. These key folks might be their parents or caregivers, siblings, teachers, or peers. And these can all, again, these are folks who impact the daily life of the mentee and might have an impact on how the mentor might need to show up for the mentee. Another Becoming a Better Mentor chapter is about attunement in the mentoring relationship and how you can make sure you're really tuned in to what the mentee is going through. Well, of course, their interactions with teachers, coaches, parents are going to impact their thoughts and feelings and beliefs. And so, again, that's why it's good for the mentor to kind of know who those key people are in the mentee's life so that they can reach out to them for support as well. Interactions with these adults can strengthen or complicate the mentoring relationship. If a mentor was not on the same page with the mentor coordinator or the family or the school, they might be doing things that might cause friction between some of those parties, and we don't want that to happen. We want to create lasting mentoring relationships. And so this is why it's important to create those working alliances, with other adults in the mentoring relationship. So let's talk more about what a working alliance is. A working alliance is a partnership between a mentor and caregiver or other key adult in the mentee's life. It's focused on supporting the young person's growth. So as a mentor, you want to, again, be on the same page with the parent, and even going beyond that, not just be on the same page, but be in partnership. How can we work together toward the mutual positive goals of this young person? So key elements of a working alliance include having shared goals, agreement on what you're working toward. Is this mentor relationship focused on emotional support? Is it focused on career exploration? Is it just supposed to be a fun thing to tap into the young person's interests and kind of get them out of their shell? It's important to talk about those things up front. Another aspect of a working alliance is clear roles, understanding each person's tasks and responsibilities. An example here might be that if, for example, the mentor's role is really about that social support, maybe helping a mentee who's kind of closed into themselves open up, build friendships, practice socialization, then it's clear for the mentoring to be focused on that. The caregiver might not feel it's important for then the mentor to step out of that role and start, say, directing the mentees career goals or coaching them on academic classes to take. The parent or caregiver might feel like, that's the parent's role with the school system. And so if the mentor is then coaching them along a different path, that can create friction. So it's important for everyone to make sure they understand what are the roles and boundaries around the mentoring relationship. Another thing toward a working alliance is that personal bond. Trust, care, and respect that encourage ongoing collaboration. So this is not the personal bond with the mentee. This is actually having a personal bond from mentor to family, from family to teacher, from teachers to coaches, and back to mentor. How can all of these folks make sure that they have a positive personal bond so that those lines of communication can stay open? Again, toward the mutual benefit of that young person's growth. And we're going to, again, get to hear a story of a working alliance when we get into our panel with Emily and Sarah. So let's keep going. Why is working within the mentoring system important? Well, it's important because you want that positive communication and coordination within a youth network because it supports positive youth development. And that's the whole point, right? We want to be working with this mentee to access their best selves, and we can do that when we have communication and coordination. So that might be simple logistics like when, where, what the activities will be when they meet, but it also might be larger items about the young person's goals and where they see themselves headed and how all those adults can be on the same page to help them reach those goals. A strong mentor-caregiver bond is built on communication and respect, and it encourages cooperation and ongoing commitment, which ultimately helps the mentoring relationship last longer. So if the mentor and the parents and family and mentor coordinator are all working toward the same goal, it is more likely that they'll all be enjoying the mentoring and how it's supporting the young person, and that they'll want to continuously engage with it and extend that match. Also, working within the mentoring system is important because it shows the mentee that their caregiver or teacher approves of the mentoring relationship. So I kind of reflected on this in my own personal example, that as a young person, it felt good to know that if we ran into my mentor, Miss Brenda, and my family was with me, that it would be a positive interaction. I didn't feel friction or stress. And as a young person, I was very keyed into how adults were thinking and feeling, and I would sometimes internalize it if I felt like a stressful interaction, and I didn't feel that at all when my family communicated with Miss Brenda and vice versa. So it felt really good and positive and affirming as a young person and as an anxious young person to know that they were on the same page and that there were good and positive feelings between my family and Miss Brenda. And that meant a lot to me. So now that we know why it's important to work within the mentoring system, you might be saying, okay, how do I accomplish this? How do I start to build these positive relationships that encourage cooperation and trust? Well, here's some things you can try. Get to know the key adults early and discuss expectations for the mentoring relationship. So when you're first meeting the mentee, you can ask them, who are the important adults in your life? You can talk to the mentoring coordinator and ask them to help you set up a meeting so you can meet the parent or talk to the caregiver as well as the young person. Maybe they're even at that initial meeting, and that's a good thing, and you all can talk. It goes a long way to start with these positive communications very early on in the mentoring relationship so that if there's bumps later down the road, you already have those positive connections and lines of communication open. Other ways, well, communicate clearly about the goals and each person's role in supporting them. So, some of this might be outlined through the mentoring program, the mentoring initiative that you're a part of it. But again, you can never go too far as to be asking for clarity from both the mentor coordinator and the parent or caregiver about the person's role in that young person's life. Handle disagreements constructively and protect the mentoring relationship. I think here it makes a lot of sense for everyone to remember that the mentoring is in support of the young person. So if we can all agree that we want the best for the young person, I think that'll go a long way in handling disagreements. And then the rest is just communicating those roles and boundaries, how people like to be communicated with, how often and by what means, so that we can get on the same page. And again, as a mentor, you don't have to handle this alone. Make sure you're working with your mentoring coordinator and the parent, everyone together, to talk through any disagreements that might come up. And then use the same skills you learned in your mentee training to apply to the key adults in the family. Consistency is important. Collaborating, being curious about the family and not judgmental, having cultural humility. The family might approach things differently than you might approach things with your own family, but you have to remember the young person is in that family daily, and it is not appropriate for you to judge what's going on with that family. It's your role to have cultural humility and try to approach them with curiosity and understanding and get to know more about what's happening in that young person's life. So this helps build trust and continue to navigate those roles or routines and boundaries with caregivers, because again, those might flux over time. The students' different needs might emerge at different times, or they might become more self-sufficient in an area, and your mentoring might start to look differently once they get more confidence in a certain area. So these things are always going to be in flux, especially if you're with that match for a prolonged amount of time. So remember to just use those communication skills, those people skills, socialization skills, and apply those to the family and parent as well as the young person. Excellent. Well, that's just my preview of Chapter 7, working within the mentoring system. I would encourage you, highly encourage you to go to the website to download the PDF, to engage with the video or the podcast, and take away your own key things and apply those to your mentoring relationship. Next up, we have a beautiful panel with Emily, a Mentor Nebraska consultant, and Sarah, a parent who has worked with Emily in support of her son. And this panel really uplifts what a working alliance looks like in practice. And so I encourage you to stay on as we transition to this pre-recorded panel with Emily and Sarah. Welcome to our training today on becoming a better mentor, working with others in the mentoring system. Today we have Sarah and Emily here. Sarah is coming to us as a parent of a young person, and Emily is a consultant for Mentor Nebraska, and we'll talk more about her role as a mentoring coordinator. So I'm Susie Owens, Deputy Director here at Mentor Nebraska, and happy to be having this conversation with you all today. Sarah, if we could start with you, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your son and his relationship to Emily in the mentor coordinator role?
Yes, my name is Sarah and I'm Grayson's mom, and Grayson attends the BCC after school program and summer program, and he's been involved with them for a few years now. So we've been working together pretty closely, just building that relationship. So
my name is Emily. I'm the executive director at the Belmont Community Center. The BCC has after school programs, before school programs, early childhood classrooms, and we do a lot of adults and children mentoring and group settings, and in those programs, summer as well. And so again, yeah, that's how I know Sarah, and I know Grayson, and I have had the privilege of knowing them before Grayson went to kindergarten. So 4 years now, and then also being able to just meet your family and know other people as part of the community center.
I love that you have that consistency and longevity over a few years together. That's wonderful.
So can you tell us how you two have worked on your relationship, how you've grown as caregiver, parent, and mentor coordinator to create consistency for the young person, especially through transitions such as Grayson first starting with programming or when there's transitions in staffing, those kind of things. How have you all made sure that you can communicate together effectively?
I would just say just like checking in, talking, especially his verbal communication has improved a lot over the last few years, but at the beginning, there wasn't as much. So it took a lot for us to communicate and learn, and we just had to do a lot of the communicating that he couldn't, and things like that. And then I just think bringing in like agencies like Autism Family Network, and just like trying to help not only educate ourselves more, but making sure staff or new staff, maybe they've never experienced a child with a disability. And so just kind of giving them tools for that. And then also, I think like when there was a new staff hired after one of the staff, school age staff left, that Grayson was really attached to. He did really, really well, I think, because of Emily and him, the relationship, and showing him that the new person was safe. And the new person that came in and took that role also made Gray feel very special too. So I think that, showing interest in what he's interested in, because then he'll talk to you about his special interests forever. So if you show him that you really care, he will start to build that relationship. And I think that's what Emily has done really well. So it's like if she brings somebody in and they start to kind of give that same energy, then he's like, oh, okay, like they like what I like, they want to help me out, and I think that's where the trust is built, with him. So
Yeah, I mean, like Sarah said, a lot of what we, worked on in our relationships was observing Grayson, understanding who he is and what he likes, and knowing that we're part of a really big team. Of support and mentoring system for Grayson. He has quite a few teachers and doctors, special therapists, his caregivers, and then lots of after school program staff. At the end of the day, it's really about hyping each other up for sure, making sure he knows we all know each other, we all like each other, we respect each other. That definitely adds to the impact of consistency. And then paying attention to, again, what he likes. We get him after school, so that's a really cool opportunity because usually he's all business during the day. He's got to go to school, he might have to go to appointments, he's got to do these things. So being able to understand him even as his speech has progressed and understand, what is your mood right now and what do you like to do and how can we, focus on your interests and build up your strengths. And this is really the time to do it before you go home and you start that routine, that home routine. So the mentoring space of after school programs really provides a lot of that opportunity to get to know a child.
I love what you're saying about hyping each other up, like being that trust broker for other folks also in the mentoring system, whether that be teachers or other services, the after school care, and then keeping those lines of communication open with Sarah and even Grayson himself, where he's able to communicate his own needs. So I love that you all are working together. I'm also curious about how did you decide what information would be shared among caregivers? Like, where are those boundary lines between caregivers, staff, other support systems? And how do you maintain a healthy balance between open communication, but also respecting boundaries and confidentiality where it's appropriate?
I think for me, like, I know if I go to Emily, I can tell her pretty much anything I need to and know that it's gonna stay between us unless she, sorry, it's going to stay between us unless it's something that isn't confidential or isn't should be shared with other staff to help Grayson, or I know that she's going to use it to help or use it to benefit him. And that's also where that trust building is. It's like, I know that if it's information that needs to be shared, we would discuss that, but there hasn't really been any issues with that, especially because most of it is like IEPs or things I've signed releases for, that I want them to be included on. But, we just kind of focus on that. But you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
there's something else that like, when there was situations that arise, I definitely trust Emily to go to her and know that she's going to handle it in the best interest for everyone involved, especially Grayson. And so I think once again, it comes back to that like trust. And when things do happen, like we've always been able to talk.
And I hope that part of that trust is built from, I hope that I'm asking a lot. Like that's my goal, is to be asking Sarah, is this appropriate to share with the team? Is this something that not is a skill we could all be working on building with him? Would this help other people understand him? I think that part of that is just making sure that it's a collaboration and a level of high respect and always a level of high problem solving, or just wanting best for Grayson and things like that. So, and I also think that, something we didn't talk about in the communication, but Sarah and I will talk in any format. We'll talk via email, we'll talk via messaging on our application, we'll talk in, just quick spurts or in planned meetings. Like there's a lot of different ways. And that's a lot of interactions to build trust from, I think is what I'm trying to say, is that
Yeah.
there's just so much communication that we're able to build trust in very meaningful, organic ways, because we're just staying in communication. It's being built. And part of that staying in communication is also just being willing to stay in communication, even if you're in conflict, something like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
but always centering it back on the student.
And I think something for me too, just because like when advocating for your child, and especially since I have an older child with autism and things were they were a lot harder, 7 years ago. And so sometimes I want to always be like, I want to be positive and happy and I don't want to complain. So I think that took a lot too, to learn how to be like an advocate and learn like the balance between like, okay, this is a serious thing, but like, just how to be like, not take it so personal. And that people just are trying to understand. Maybe it's, education, maybe it's because some, communication was missed because when he, couldn't communicate, or what I'm saying, that it's not always that personal. And then having Emily tell me we want him here
Yeah.
was like probably the most defining moment for me, because as a parent of special needs children, you don't always get that feeling in a lot of places, unless we're at events that are planned by like Autism Action Partnership in Omaha, Autism Family Network here. Then of course, it's like planned for him. But I don't think I've had somebody in a childcare setting make me feel like he was wanted there. And so then that, those, and then also not just saying it, but showing me and him that, and, and over the years, that's exactly what's happened. You said that, but you also show us that, that he is wanted there. And I think he knows he's a smart kid. He can tell when someone's tolerating him or like really interested. And it's like, Emily leading her staff to, this is how you interact. This is how you connect. This is how because he'll go ask anybody for tape or scissors or something because he wants tape or scissors. And I think sometimes people that don't quite understand autism, which I totally get that, this is something we're gonna be more research on, it's very complex and it took me a long time to learn too. Like sometimes people think, oh, he's asking for something from me, so that's building a relationship. And to somebody, they might think that, but it's like for Gray, it's like, no, I just want the scissors and you're an adult that will give it to me. But once you start really, like we've talked about, talking to him about his interests, talking to him about his day, showing him that you actually like are listening to him and paying attention to him, that is when he'll start coming up to you and probably many times and talking about Minecraft or the creeper or the Minecraft song, or, and he wants to share. And that's really huge for a kid on the spectrum, too, because sometimes they don't want to do that. They don't want to share things with other people, but he does, and he feels safe to do that in that space. And I think for me, that is like just the biggest like accomplishment we've made together. And just it's truly life-changing for a kid to have that experience in elementary school. It really is. I mean, I know we tend to minimize it. It's just that, an everyday thing, right? But like having adults in your life that support you, that are interested in you, that care about your future, it means the most. And those adults, those kids do better as adults, and I just really value our relationship. So
Oh, I love that. We talk about having
see, and
a
I probably
mentor
couldn't have said that.
mindset.
She's right next to me, but I just want her to know that, because like
Yeah.
not every after school program will dedicate that much time. Not everybody has that much time, to dedicate. So it just taking the time to get to know him, wanting him there, telling that you care about him. That's the things that mean the most, I think. So
I love that. It makes me think about a different training we have that kind of works with becoming a better mentor called mentoring mindset. And it talks about, it sounds like that's what Emily and her staff do at BCC, is bring that mentoring mindset into their interactions. So even though it's in a out of school time or after school time setting, Emily and her staff are embodying that and making sure that Grayson feels like he's seen, he's understood. They want to understand. When they don't understand, they want to learn. And those things sound like they've translated to you, and as the caregivers there, that you're seeing that and really valuing that a lot. Emily, was there something you wanted to add about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things came to mind just while you were talking, Sarah, in terms of, I hope that the reason that it doesn't ever feel personal is because we also stay accountable. We're also willing to change. We're also willing to listen to anyone on the mentoring team who's telling us, this might be the best way to do something. Try this out. At the end of the day, the whole team of us are always trying to figure things out as we center Grayson. So I think that that is something I thought about too. It's, we're able to handle conflict or bounce back or stay trusted in communicating because one, Sarah is learning that we're learning and we are staying accountable to learning. So I think that was something that I really thought about. And then also just how, again, I think an opportunity it is for childcares and for after school programs to be considered part of the mentoring system because there are so many adults that are interfacing with students, based on the day, based on the rotation of the room. Maybe this staff is indoors this day and this staff is outside the next day. And so kids are getting access to a lot of different adults, ranging from high school age students who are mentoring them in a sense right there in the group setting, all the way up to professionals and executive directors, mentor coordinators. So I think it's a really cool opportunity too in these group mentoring spaces to see kids flourishing amongst a whole wide variety of adults who connect with them in different ways.
me too. And I
Yeah.
really like that you added the accountability too, because I thought about that too. And just like accountability is a big deal because it just shows that like, yes, this is acknowledged, but there's like what can we do better? How can we improve this? What can we do? Because every mistakes are always going to be made. There's always going to be learning experiences. Like I said, it took me a long time to learn too. Luckily, I happened to work in some autism therapy stuff before he was diagnosed, was just lucky enough to do that, So I was able to kind of learn a lot more that way, doing my certification but not everybody gets, that crash course on that, and it's like just being patient and realizing that you guys are working to like I said, understand. And when something doesn't go right, being accountable. It's like, that's really all that, is needed. It's like, what can we, and just keeping that conversation open and
And
just,
asking for advice. Sometimes it's as simple as asking for the advice, because you
Yeah.
can feel or you can understand that this is not, nobody wanted to, feel like they were in a battle with the kid all day, like, I want to know
Right.
what you want to be into, like,
Well,
but it's
and
like
that's
also
definitely,
asking those questions of the adults who have been around him and who care about him and who love him and who are the experts on him. And again, it can ebb and flow. I feel like
Mhm.
Sarah is, obviously the matriarch because that is her son, but there's other people who know other things about Grayson at different times, that really, even the teachers have come down and helped us look at what does the after school program look like in comparison to school, where can we ease the transition a little bit, or things like that. Just again, just trying to elevate the ways in which he can feel successful and that we all feel like we're supporting him in the areas that we have the opportunity to be in.
exactly. And like you said, I think like having you asking questions, you involving the other professionals to get more insight. Because there's, like I said, there's things I had to learn too, just about like when he was giving me the signals, you know what I mean? To like, okay, I need a minute. It took me, I had to learn about that too. Like, I need to go in my room, I need to shut the door, I need you to give me a minute. But we all ebb and flow day to day, but for people on the spectrum, that can be even more, depending on what, they went through that day. And that's why I think you and I have really tried to get like the school involved. And I think it would be kind of nice just to, maybe we can get like an email going where they just send us kind of like if it's a bad day. It's been going really
Yeah.
good, to be honest. But
Yeah.
just if you need to be on the lookout, like, hey,
Yeah.
did about 5 math sheets. So he might be, but I think, and then also I wanted to add the room, that used to be your office. It's called, is it
The
a
cubby.
room? What is it
The
called?
cubby. We call it the cubby.
The cubby.
Hmm.
That's been wonderful too. And like, you could have still had your own office. You moved into an office and shared it, and you made a cubby for kids who need some downtime. And I think that's pretty awesome. They give it a lot of space, for that. But I think it's been really helpful for kids who just need a little bit of like space away from the other kids and I think
Yeah.
it's been
After
great.
a long day, they're putting in work too. A school day is work. That's a lot of time to sit down and to exercise any part of your body or your brain and to be in a routine, and it's good and it's fruitful. But man, once we're after school, I feel the release of everyone being like, we're after school, right? We're out of school. We do this now. And I'm like, okay, yes, but don't do too much. Like
Exactly. Like there's still to be
Having a
boundaries.
balance.
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you all have already kind of naturally been talking about this, but one of the things we wanted to discuss is navigating differences when they arise. How do you negotiate to make sure that people get on the same page? And I heard you talk about accountability helps, knowing that Emily and the staff care about Grayson and want him there, like see value in him being there. So Sarah, what has helped you build trust um with Emily and the BCC? Like, how did you really know, like, he's good here, he's safe here, and I feel comfortable
I
with
would
him interacting?
I would say especially, the things like saying that he's wanted there and things like that, but then also following through with that, like when there was conflict or we would have a meeting, if she had any feeling like I need to check in with her and make sure she felt comfortable to say everything she needed to say with everybody in the room, she would check in with me on her own and make it a point. And I know she's busy, but she always makes a point to be like, hey, I noticed, I want to make sure that you're good. And to me, that goes a long way. It may take us 5 minutes or 15 minutes or how Greg comes running up and it's like, mom. But it's so nice because it's like, there's been times I wasn't. And I probably would have never said anything. But her looking at me and you can tell when somebody genuinely cares, saying, are you good? Like, did that go, and being able to trust that like she's going to look out for me and him. and so, because some people just do their jobs and some people have passion in their jobs, and that shows. And so when I see somebody that's passionate about what they're doing, it's like, I definitely want to keep him involved there as long as I could. I wish you guys were middle school as well. I'm already like thinking about, only till 5th grade. No, but it's been that good of an experience of learning. There's been conflict, there's been growing, there's been accountability, apologies, all of that. But that's what makes a good relationship. Because had we not gone through that, I wouldn't know how much she cares about Gray, if that makes sense, she definitely, I know that he's safe with her. And it's like, that's a great feeling to have when you're at work, away from your child, especially when they're nonverbal and just, now he's doing a lot better with that. But it was hard for him, for a long time to tell me, like, he might just be mad at a teacher. They're mean. Well, they told you no, that's okay. But you know what I mean? Now it's a lot different than that. But it's like, I know that when he's there, like he's going to be good, and we might have days where he's not happy because he, couldn't have all the tape or something, but that's nothing we can't handle, And I think that it's just progressed really well. And that takes a lot. That takes like somebody directing it to do that. Like us working together, I think has been like the biggest part in that. Cause yes, I do a lot of it, but I feel like you've really helped too with like, obviously your staff and trying to make sure that somebody attended his IEP meeting to make sure you guys were involved, things like that. So that really builds trust too. It's like that you really want to learn. So
We want to be in those spaces, we want to be connected to the other people who are caring for Grayson. It only, what's the all ships rise in a tide, all, the everybody elevates together kind of model,
no, and I totally agree. And I'm glad that we finally made that connection that we've been working on, because it's like, that is the piece. Because it's like, if you don't, like we said, if you don't know kind of what he's doing during the day, it's kind of hard to understand where he's coming from. That might change day to day, but
Yeah.
and now you have those tools kind of too. They're like, oh, Gray doesn't look, now we got to break out the Minecraft song, or you know what I mean? Like, his interests, him well enough. You've taken the time, you've invested in him. So it's like, they know that. They can sense it. They're like, she knows what I like.
Excellent. And then my last question, and you can always add anything else you want to talk about, but the last question was, how have you also incorporated Grayson's personality into um how you all are working together and making sure that his needs and interests and preferences are accounted for, obviously with balance, but also that that youth voice piece is there in a way that also aligns with his autism and his needs there.
Yeah, I mean, I again think that we all really play our role. And in my opinion, this, this kind of mentoring after school relationship is the most fun one. But I think that's the thing, right? Is we're all kind of playing our role, and that's how we can keep things consistent. And that's how we can, encourage him to be his best at different times of his day, just like we all have to, right? Like sometimes we have to go to work, sometimes we have to do the dishes, but sometimes we get to lounge around in our PJs, like there are different things that you get to do at school, and there are still fun things you get to do there at different times of day. There's still things you get to do at BCC, and that's even more kind of flexibility. I tell people all the time, this kind of gap between school and home is kind of my sweet spot, and a part I like, because you're kind of teaching kids just to like be in the world. Like there's no big pressure here, but just be in the world, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to find out what you like while you're in the world. But then at home, they get that personal space. They get this time and attention with their family and their parent. They get this more relaxed feel where they can go to the fridge, or they can do any, they can go to the bathroom when they want. They don't ask permission or tell an adult where to go. Whereas, for this whole first half of the day, including us, that's still part of the plan, is to have a child communicate with us where they're going, if they need to go to the bathroom, ask permission for things. So it's kind of this sweet spot in between of, we don't need to be as rigid as school. There's learning there. We're happy that you're learning, but once you're after school, we can give you time to just do what you need. And there's going to be some boundaries, because I tell kids all the time at the center, it's not the Emily Center, it's the community center. So I'm going to need us to all figure this one out, But again, being able to walk alongside kids and teach them that, and then send them home to the people who love them most, and let them experience that in a way that's outside of maybe the routines of school, or outside of the responsibilities even, if they can get their homework done at BCC, if they can get out some of their big energy while they're at the community center. Again, trying to walk kids through the time and the space, and how to accomplish different things in your day and enjoy it,
And I think it's been really nice too, even though we have a lot of boxes in the
A
back.
lot of boxes, a
house,
lot of
I-
cardboard boxes come out of the BCC and straight into Sarah's van.
Yes,
I'm glad for it, to be honest.
I know.
But
Like, no, but I
Grayson
just
loves
throw
to
them
cut
away
up a
when-
box.
I just
They
have to throw them
prevent
away
it.
when he leaves for school, set them out in the trash. But then sometimes he notices and he's not too happy, but because he paints on them and he puts pictures
Yeah.
on them, makes cities.
Yeah, like whole cities, yes.
And so I think it's been really nice to have like, the crafts, the colors, oh, you don't want to go do this organized, or you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to be active. Maybe you had PE today. Maybe you played at the park during recess and you're just kind of like, you want to kind of get in your zone and just color and draw and get creative and, build on his box and have you guys print Minecraft, whether it be Minecraft or whatever it may be that day. Hopefully it's Minecraft for a little while, because
Yeah,
it's like,
we love
we have all these Minecraft things. But and I think now that he's older too, he definitely goes in and tells you guys, like, you knew right away when he was into Minecraft after he went to the movie, because
Mhm.
he was not shy about going up to you saying the creepers and then you showed him this creepers song. And I think that also builds a mentor relationship. Like, Emily knows about this.
Oh, I also went to the Minecraft movie in theaters, bro. We had a whole conversation.
So
I'm
that to
with
him
you.
is like, yeah. You're like, Emily knows.
I do.
We went
I
to,
think part
state
of-
or
oh,
music fest. And when we walked for Jackson, my oldest son, and we walked in, and I know one Latura, I know a lady that works there, and right away he held up his creeper pictures, like, do you know the creeper? And I was like, but so that's definitely how we connect with
Yeah.
people. So
I was also think a mentor is that mirror, right? It's a reflection of the young person. And so that what you just illustrated, Sarah, in your story of like him saying, like, holding up the creeper, and then Emily having the song, like, I'm gonna match your energy, like I'm gonna reflect back to you what you're reflecting to me, and then we can build that shared interest, and and then that's where that relationship continues to grow and to build. And I can tell just by interacting with Sarah, you and Sarah and Emily together, like that trust is there, that you all have gone through some things to get to the place where, like, okay, this isn't just like the honeymoon phase where everyone's being nice, but this is like we've been to some things, and we all know that we're here for the young person. We're here for Grayson and his support, and that's very evident in the way that you all interact just in my short time. Getting to know you as we prepared for this training. So I want to thank you both for your time, and also leave any space if either of you have any final thoughts as we close up. So thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with me today.
I think one final thought I had, Susie, was I went to a mentor training about also including peers in the mentoring system. And it really struck me because I'm in the space of group mentoring a lot more than I'm in individual mentoring. And just how important it is to bring kids and their peers alongside in this journey, because and the difference is that we talk a lot about the adults in the mentoring system, but the peers can really be an either a force for good or not, in the sense of like we're competing as mentors directly with peers, and we don't need to be competing, right? that's not the point of it, but at the end of the day, a child is going to be influenced by their peers and or by adults or one or the other. And the goal is that it would be everyone. So I think about that too, especially for Grayson, who's working on his social skills, and who kids in our program are learning about different sets of social skills and how again they can communicate. It's just a real ripple down effect, in my opinion, of just again, all the adults and all of the people in the mentoring system here, all of those who are more transient in the mentoring system, like part-time staff or after-school staff, summer staff. I mean, we even have just staff going to the pool sometimes, right? And then also then that layer of peers and understanding how they influence each other and how they are influencing each other for good, right? We can talk to each other and we can have same interests there too. We can match children with their interests, let people find joy in being around each other as well. So I just thought about that a little bit too, because we really get to experience all layers of working within the mentoring system.
I
I
agree
love
with
that.
just because I never thought about that. I mean, I think about it, but I never thought about it like that. Just like kids that have learned about Gray, I can tell, like when we came to the Belmont Community Center Carnival, just kids that understood that, so they weren't saying things, you know, they were understanding, and like kids knowing that it was Autism Acceptance Day, trying to support him. And I think the adults that are mentoring are showing the peers how to treat the other kids. You know, they're learning by example. And so that's pretty neat to see, because it's a natural thing that's happening. You know, kids are being really kind to him because they see other adults being kind, and they
And
want.
asking about his interests, right? They understand that, like, oh, Miss Emily and Grayson talk about creepers. I also really like creepers. You know, they're ready to jump in the chat. They're ready to talk to me and ready to talk to Grayson. And we're just kind of expanding our network of communicating and building relationships in a way that just is very inclusive and helpful for everyone, you know?
Very much so.
I
Okay, that's
love
all.
that. Well, thank you so much. You all hit on so many points that are in the chapter, in the resource. So I encourage folks to read the resource as well, in addition to listening to this wonderful conversation. So thank you again, Sarah, Emily.
We want to give a big thank you to Emily and Sarah for engaging with us on that panel that really lifted up what a working alliance looks like in practice. Let's cover some key takeaways, both from reviewing the resource and from our conversation with Emily and Sarah. First, remember, other adults care for the mentee, and many individuals influence the mentee. Take care to build trust with others in the mentoring system, speak positively about them, keep lines of communication open, and that will go a long way. Second, align expectations early, but remember they may continue to evolve and be renegotiated throughout the mentoring experience depending on the young person's needs and needs of key adults in the mentoring system. Proactively communicate with other important adults in the mentee's life can help prevent misunderstandings. That way, everyone can be on the same page. They can be working in collaboration with one another and really building the trust required of a working alliance. Lastly, although you may interact with many people connected to your mentee should have no doubt that your focus is on them and not other people in their life. So keeping that young person centered in the relationship is just as important, even as we build bonds in collaboration with key adults in the mentee's life. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to close out with just some additional support that you can tap into from Mentor Nebraska. We would love for you to go to the website and access the resource. Again, download it, watch it, read it, listen to it. So feel free to scan this QR code and it'll take you there to that website so you can access it. Keep engaged with Mentor Nebraska. You can get support from our team through no-cost technical assistance for mentoring programs. Visit our website, mentornebraska.org/consulting to learn more and submit a technical assistance request. We would love your feedback on today's no-cost training. So whether you're watching it on release date or thereafter, please let us know your thoughts and feelings about the training. You can scan this QR code, Becoming a Better Mentor, Working with Others in the Mentoring Relationship System, to give us your feedback on today's training. Stay connected. Follow us on social. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Mentor Nebraska. And again, we just want to thank you so much for engaging with today's learnings. We want to thank Emily and Sarah for their time and contributions to talking about the chapter and really bringing it to life. And again, learn more at mentoring.org/bettermentor. Thank you so much. Have a great day.